Here we go. I will demonstrate that either there's no such thing as moral luck, or everyone is profoundly mistaken about its nature, and no radical rethinking of moral luck is needed. The argument to be developed is not complicated and relies almost entirely on premises that should seem obviously correct to anyone who follows the moral luck literature. The conclusion, however, is surprising and disturbing. The classic case of moral luck always involve an agent who lacks control over an event whose occurrence affects our family worthiness. It weighs worthiness. Okay. Close examination of what it is to have control or to lack it reveals the logical space for counterexamples that do not fit the pattern constituted moral luck, and so unravel the whole. Here's the argument to be defended on what follows. Moral luck occurs only when factors beyond an agent control positively affect the degree of praise or blame she deserves. Thus, moral luck exists only in cases where the agent has low control over the relevant factors. Control is partly understood in terms of chanciness or causation. If control is understood in terms of chanciness, then greater control over an event reduces chanciness and less control increases chanciness. Causation always involves a reduction of chanciness. The greater extent to which A causes B, the likelier B is given A. Thus, greater control entails less chanciness, less control entails more chanciness, no matter how control is cashed out. Control and chanciness are inversely proportional. Thus, moral luck occurs only in cases that are low control and high chanciness. There are cases of moral luck that are high control, high chanciness, and cases of moral luck that are low control, low chanciness. By reductio, premise 1 is false. Thus, either there is no moral luck, or everyone is deeply mistaken about its nature, and a radical rethinking of moral luck is needed. I think I came up with this in 2018 and failed to publish on it. And I guess then I got scooped a year later. Here we are in 2023, and I'm reading about it. Everyone who writes on moral luck agrees with 1. Everyone who offers any kind of analysis control agrees with 3 and 4. Everyone who writes on causation agrees with 5. Everything else is inference from these premises, except 8. That's the sole controversial premise. The keystone that holds up the argument of Arch, in which I'll provide a relevant original defense of it. The argument 10 is radical 1, but no, one that is not easily avoided. The idea that moral luck is to be understood in terms of lack of control is present in the seminal discussions of Bernard Williams and Thomas Nicol. I think what I need is this to be the idea that moral luck is to be understood in terms of lack of control is present in some of the discussions of Bernard Williams and Thomas Nagel. Williams writes, what is not the domain of the self is not in its control, and so it's subject to luck. Nagel's entire discussion of moral luck is predicated on the idea that there is a clash between our pre-theoretical assumption about that nothing outside of control can affect our moral accessibility and the various examples of moral luck. One seldom finds unanimity among philosophers. Everyone who has written on moral luck subsequently concurs. Martha Nussbaum contends that what happens to someone by luck is that which is outside their agency, and so to eliminate luck from his life is to put things that matter under one's control. Claudia Card writes that what makes something a matter of luck is that it leaves our control. Yeah, this is how you spell it. According to Contratan, luck is meant to capture a situation outside the choices and control of the individual. It's just rather since the possible moral luck arises only for to blame for actions or consequences that are beyond our control. According to H.T. Haji, something is subject to luck, roughly, if it's beyond our control. Moral obligation is subject in ways. Robert J. Hartman writes, moral luck occurs when factors beyond my control positively affect the degree of pleasure blame she deserves. He calls this a standard view, but it's more than a standard. It's ubiquitous and universal. Mark B. Anderson goes so far as to claim that in all the work ever done on moral luck, one can just replace luck with lack of control, salvo veritate. I've argued in earlier work that moral luck must rely on control theory of luck, and it's incompatible with other general conceptions of luck, such as probability or rule theories. Here, I'm not concerned with theories of luck per se. Stipulating that moral luck involves lack of control without worrying about the nature of luck is sufficient to generate the conclusion that the central argument moral luck exists only in a case where the agent has little or no control over some event that affects the praise or blame. Moral luck exists in situations where no one lacks control, but how should we understand controlling? In Enchiridion 1, Epictetus argues that our intentions and actions are within our control, whereas achievements and success are not. The general understanding of control has not advanced too far since then. Instead, as Joshua Shepard observes, most writers of control are more interested in types of control: managerial, guidance, voluntary, direct, indirect, cognitive, and so on, than explaining controls in particular. Shepard notes that the common thread tying these various subtypes together is one's degree of control has to do with one's rate of success in executing one's intentions, and offers a rare definition of general control. An agent J exercises control in service of intention I due to degree D and subsequent circumstance T, if and only if J's behavior in T approximates the representational content of I to at least degree D. J's behavior in T is within a normal range for J, where the normal range is defined by J's behavior across a sufficiently large and well-selected set of counterfactual circumstances C, of which T is a member, and the causal pathway producing J's behavior in T is among those normally responsible for producing J's successes at reaching the level of content approximation represented by D across C. This complex definition is shot through with modality. The degree to which an agent is in control of some outcome is directly dependent on the chanciness of that outcome. Shepard makes it clear elsewhere in his paper that the more probable is one can bring about the desired outcome, the more one's in control. One of his examples is a dart player who intends to hit the bullseye. The player's degree of control over dart throwing is equivalent to her success rate at hitting the bullseye, where the success rate is measured across a sufficiently large and well-selected set of counterfactual circumstances in which the dart thrower possesses and attempts to execute an intention to hit the bullseye. Shepard notes that we need a large number of cases before we get any useful information regarding just how lucky someone's success really was. Shepard tends to run together the distinction between the probability of executing one's intentions, the chance of hitting the bullseye in similar circumstances, and the modal robustness of executing one's intentions, the chance of hitting the bullseye as the circumstances of the throw become increasingly bizarre, distant from the actual world. There's an important difference between modality and probability. Losing ticket in a fair lottery is very probable, but the loss might not be modally robust. If one hits 5 out of 6 numbers, and it's a close possible world in which the lotto rotates a few more degrees in the hopper to make the ticket a winner. Even though such a win is modally close, it's still probabilistically remote. While modal robustness, fragility, and probability are considerably distinct, they're both forms of chanciness. The takeaway point is that Shepard thinks best way to understand controls in terms of the chanciness of bringing about some event, and it's only after a large number of trials that we can determine just how chancy one's rate of success is and hence their degree of control. Crucially, luck and control are tied together by chanciness. The chancier the achievement, the less it is a matter of control, the more it is due to luck. Greater control over an outcome diminishes its chanciness unless it's a result of luck. I kind of want this point about modality and probability somewhere in Hypernomicon, because, someday I may want to find it again. This is a metaphysical point. Cool. And Jennifer Ryan and Thomas Lockhart explicitly control a matter remotely robust. In their view, if an agent was in control of performing 5, and she successfully performed 5 in every possible world in which she tried. An action that's modally fragile to any extent is not a result of control and instead a matter of luck. Their view is that true control amounts to a kind of modal infallibility is not very plausible. I agree. It's more common to see control as a matter of degree, mapping onto degree of chanciness. That sounds good. That's Duncan Pritchard's assessment. The agent has control over event and thereby determines that a certain outcome obtains, then it implies that in a wide range of relevant nearby worlds, the outcome is realized by the agent. Haskell Kriegstein pushes for probabilistic reading of control, insisting that one can distinguish achievement from lucky success only if the actions one takes makes one action success likely. The antithesis of lucky result is one that is made likely by intentional action. The greater control the agent has over some result, the more probable the result becomes, and the less it's due to chance. For von Kriegstein, sufficient control over an outcome amounts to creditable achievement, although that further point is outside the scope of the present paper. Oh, I see. For Shepard, Lockhart, Pritchard, and von Kriegstein, control is understood in terms of either modal probability chanciness, greater control over an outcome reduces its chanciness, and less control increases its chanciness. That's not the only way to conceive control. Another common way is to view control in terms of causation. The Shepard points noted most writers on this topic spend little time fleshing out what control is in general, since they are eager to move on to various kinds of control or explain what sort of control is needed for moral responsibility over the projects. Nonetheless, everyone who does not analyze control directly in terms of chanciness makes causation a necessary condition for control. For example, according to Michael Zimmerman, one enjoys control, there's the agent set to respect to some event E, just in case one can bring it about or prevent it from occurring. Complete control. Let's also make a note somewhere. Good enough. Whoops. Shepard correctly noted. Oh, okay. Complete control would be when one also has control over the causal antecedents V. Wayne Riggs argues that one controls an event if only if one brings the event about as a result of applying one's abilities, power, skills. Fernando Baracol explicitly claims that one can control event E only if one can cause E to be in a specific state, where E is the state as a result of one's causal disposition. Romeo Levy wants to add an epistemic condition to the idea of control, insisting that an agent needs to know that and how a state of affairs is causally sensitive transactions. The not of control, still causation. For these theorists, control has to do with powers, dispositions, abilities, and skills by which some event is brought about. Powers cause power, and to have control is to have a kind of causal power of the world. John Martin Fisher writes, the intuitive idea of control that underwrites moral responsibility requires that an agent selects from among genuinely open alternatives and therefore makes a difference through his free choice and action. Fisher's idea of making a difference is that of causally affecting the world, of increasing the probability of one event over another. If we are causally inert and we have to respect anything outside our light cone, then there is no sensible way in which we possess or are in control. As Peels affirms, Peels is a new name to me, I think. One controls an event only if one can cause it to come about, cause it prevention. Control is a form of causal. I want to look up Rick Peels. Maybe it's Reich. Some sort of Amsterdamese person. (2012) PhD. While law control enthusiasts note that more than causation is required to have full account of control, for example, intentions and something to prevent deviant causation, this doesn't matter for the present discussion. The salient feature for them is that control is at its heart about causality. The nature of causation is a vexed topic, and no original proposal is offered here. However, we might finally understand causation. It is relatively anodyne to observe that causes increase the likelihood of their effects, that is, an agent, event, class of events, or omission causes some other event or class of events only if the former makes the latter less chancy. John Williamson writes, causal relationships are typically accompanied by probabilistic dependencies. Normally when A causes B, the former raises or lowers the probability of the latter. Let's make a causation. I don't understand why there's an add. Is trope ontology? Is modal fragility causation? Is phase, I guess a phase sortal is ontology, as is substance. Should social ontology be under ontology? Yeah, why not? It's got ontology in the name. Why am I looking over there? Okay. Von Christine confirms causing an event is that a constitutor closely accompanied by making that event likely. Michael Tooley agrees that causation is related to increase in probability, and Wesley Salmon observes that probabilistic causal concepts are used in numerous contexts in everyday life and science, consider typical type causal claims such as smoking causes lung cancer, negligence causes accidents, ice cream causes happiness. Smoking causes lung cancer can be true even when no single act of smoking leads to lung cancer, and even when lifelong smokers live cancer-free to old age. Rather, smoking increases the chance of lung cancer. We wouldn't be motivated to think that smoking causes lung cancer. Smoking causes lung cancer means at least that smoking makes lung cancer more apt to occur, albeit not certain, and lung cancer is less likely, although not certain, if one is a non-smoker. Likewise, negligence is not inevitably followed by accidents, although it makes them likelier, and occasionally one is displeased after eating ice cream despite the low risk otherwise. I think I'm going to go pick up a cat. Good kitty. A decrease in chanciness is also present in token causation. Here are some sample cases. Regular match caused it to flame, turning the key caused it to start. Taxation without representation was the cause of the American Revolution. In deterministic world, probability that striking the match resulted in the flame is 1. I have a cat on my lap now. If a specific turning of the key led to the car starting, then that turning reduced the chance of non-starting to 0, and so on. It's because causation entailed a decrease in probabilistic or modal chanciness that some have analyzed causation in just those terms. While those theories need to be adopted here, any adequate theory of causation must address the fact that not only does B follow A, but B is somehow more likely because of A. However, that fact doesn't compel a particular theory of causation any more than the fact of color perception necessitates a particular metaphysics of color. Rather, a desideratum for an adequate theory of color is that it helps explain color perception, and desideratum for an adequate theory of causation is that it helps explain how or why effects are made more probable or more remotely robust by their causes. To sum up the discussion at this point, everyone who writes on moral luck presents it as occurring only when factors beyond nature and control affect our blameworthiness or praiseworthiness. As we've seen, every analysis of control is either in terms of modal or probabilistic chanciness or in terms of causation. Causation itself implicitly involves chanciness. Causes make their effects more likely, and the absence of a particular cause makes an event less likely. In short, all analyses of control or lack of control involve chanciness. Less control over an outcome makes the outcome more a matter of chance, and greater control makes the outcome less chancy. The inverse proportionality of control and chanciness is shown graphically in Figure 1. Color figure. Yeah, we really need color for this figure. Many things on the curve are not matters of luck. However, according to general control theory of luck, all instances of luck are located somewhere on the curve. One virtue of this account is that it clearly shows that luck and concomitantly moral luck is a matter of degree. Events aren't simply lucky ones or not, but instead are a fine-grained scale of luckier to less likely. Second virtue of the present analysis, that by teasing out the relationship between control and chanciness, it merely solves a long-standing objection to control theories. Andrew Lattice's well-discussed sunrise objection to control theory of luck is this: the sun rises every day, its doing so is both significant to us and out of our control, therefore granted to control theory, it's just lucky when the sun comes up tomorrow. But the sun's rising is not a matter of luck, so the control theory is wrong. Figure 1, however, the sun rises at the origin. We have no control over it, and its chanciness is close to 0. Since sunrise is not on the curve, in fact, it's not lucky at all, which is the right result and helps vindicate figure 1 is the best way to illustrate luck's relationship to control. Even if the control theory is not a satisfactory approach to luck in general, according to moral luck enthusiasts, all incidents of properly moral luck are lucky. For example, consider the familiar case originally from Nagel of pair of drunk drivers. The first driver drives erratically but arrives home safely. The second driver also drives erratically, but a pedestrian stops in front of the car and the driver kills him. The first driver was somewhat blameworthy for his actions, even though no one was harmed, but the second driver was much more blameworthy for her actions, even though hitting the pedestrian was bad luck. The first driver had good moral luck, and the second bad moral luck, and this judgment fits nicely in the upper left part of the curve. They both had little or no control over whether the pedestrian stepped in front of their cars, and such an event was a very chancy one. Therefore, there was a good deed of luck involved in the case, or consider Williams' example of an idealized Kogan. Go. Is this how you spell it? Yes. Gauguin abandoned his wife and 5 children in order to travel halfway across the world and devote himself to painting. Had he never achieved acclaim and produced great art, then he would have been unforgivably culpable as a negligent husband and father. However, he did paint masterpieces of fine fame, results which could never have been assured in advance and go a long way to providing moral justification of his choice. But Gauguin took a huge gamble on an unpredictable future. No one has control over the aesthetic judgments of history or the popular reception of one's art. He might well have labored in obscurity, painted the 19th century equivalent of Velvet. His case too should be plotted in the upper left part of the moral luck curve. The more control we have over an event, the less chance it is. Hence, the less luck is involved in its occurrence. Take the simple act like making coffee. We typically have a great deal of control over the processes. We boil the water, grind the beans, put them in the French press, press the blender. There's very little chanciness involved with each of these steps, and our modest efforts make each of them less likely to happen. When we have a hot mug of Java at the end, little or none of it is attributed to luck. It's our good fortune to have a tasty cup of coffee, but not good luck. Okay, and it fits easily on the bottom right-hand quadrant of figure 1, so far so good. Figure 1 captures the familiar widespread intuitions about luck, control, and chance presented up to now. Correctly makes luck a matter of degree and provides a natural way to avoid the sunrise counterexample to the control analysis of luck. What's forbidden on this model are lucky events that are increasingly improbable and moderately fragile and also involve an agent with increasing control. Also forbidden are lucky events which are increasingly probable or modally robust, and also involve an agent with decreasing control. In other words, there are no instances of luck in the upper right-hand or lower left-hand corners of figure 1. Nothing said so far should be controversial. I've only spelled out the familiar ways that philosophers understand moral luck and control. These results constitute the first 7 premises in the main argument of this paper. I want to look up who cited this. Cited by 1. And it's him. Already so far, this thing's a classic. I mean, he hasn't said anything. Now we come to something unexpected. There are examples both of non-moral and moral luck that cannot be placed in the curve in figure 1. The existence of such cases violates the ubiquitous model of moral luck and premise A to the main argument in this paper. The capital letters A through G in figure 2 correspond to these cases. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Let's put it in Hypernomicon. Unfortunately, the argument's in the form of a dilemma, and Hypernomicon can't handle dilemmas very well. I guess while I think about it, I'll keep reading. Hot streaks. Consider Joe DiMaggio's celebrated hitting streak. His 1941 streak of 6 safely hitting in 56 consecutive baseball games is widely considered to be the most astounding record in the history of sport. Stephen Jay Gould once claimed that DiMaggio beat the hardest taskmaster of all, a woman who makes Nolan Ryan's fastball look like a cantaloupe in slow motion. DiMaggio was in agreement, writing, I have said many times that you have to be lucky to keep a hitting streak going. The mathematician Sam Argison and Stephen Strogatz conducted a Monte Carlo simulation of the history of baseball using a comprehensive baseball statistics database. They constructed a variety of differential mathematical models of alternate possibilities, possible histories of baseball, taking into account for each player the number of games played, number of at-bats, times walked, being hit by pitch, sacrifices, and so on. Their 5 models varied the minimum number of plate appearances and few other variables, and they ran 10,000 computer simulations for each model. These simulations amounted to complete alternative histories of baseball, and one of the results was that there was only between 20 and 50% chance that anyone would have safely hit 56 or more consecutive games. DiMaggio, who in the actual world did have a 56-game hitting streak, was barely in the top 50 of the most probable players to hold that record. In fact, they write, while no single player is especially likely to hold that record, it's likely that an extreme streak would have occurred. Okay, whatever. Probability of someone or other having a long hitting streak is high. The probability of DiMaggio in particular having the record is low. Given the Guzman and Strogat's analysis, is very unlikely that DiMaggio would hit 56 consecutive games. In fact, the longer the streak went on, the luckier he was to keep it up. However, just as salient as the improbability and luckiness of the streak is the fact that during it, DiMaggio was performing at the very peak of his abilities. He was exhibiting a very highest degree of control over his hitting, batting .408 during the streak compared with his lifetime batting average of .357. One doesn't have a long hitting streak by lacking control over the bat. DiMaggio's lucky streak must have been improbable, but it was his superb control that brought it about. Confidence at odds with the control theory of luck. Wow, okie dokie. Control theory of luck has to go in here. Do we put luck under causation? No, because there are different theories of luck. But we put it under metaphysics. So you can't have a term in two places. What did I just press? Did I just press a button? I'm gonna ask on that. I don't know. I guess this is an argument against the control theory of luck. And the control theory of luck is a necessary component for a certain understanding of moral luck. So this is an argument against a certain understanding of moral luck. But the understanding of moral luck is sort of like presupposed by everybody. It's hard to just stick it in as a position. Barely even has a name. I'll just keep reading. One-off performance. In a similar vein, or one-off high performances, instances of outlier success, they're still attributable to intentional skillful action. One example is when a golfer hits a hole-in-one. According to Golf Digest, the chance of a professional golfer hitting an ace on a given hole, 2,500 to 1. An amateur golfer has only a 12,500 to 1 chance. The odds that anyone hits an ace are extremely low. It's an extremely chancy event. The fact that a pro is 5 times more likely to do so than an amateur is indicative of the greater average control that a pro has over his stance, swing, club speed, and other factors that determine the ball's final destination. An ace requires the golfer to do everything right, that he or she exercises maximum control over the club. Even so, hitting a hole-in-one is a great stroke of luck. As Hall of Fame golfer Ben Hogan quipped, a shot that goes in the cup is pure luck, but a shot to within 2 feet of the flag is skill. Or consider any number of sporting upsets. One of the greatest was the 1980 Miracle on Ice, when the young team of American amateur hockey players beat the Soviet professional hockey team in the medal round of the 1980 Olympics, defeating a squad that had won the gold medal in 5 of the 6 previous Winter Olympic Games. This hockey equivalent to a high school football team, being the reigning Super Bowl champions. The International Ice Hockey Federation named it the best ice hockey story in the previous 100 years. Writing the game was and remains the greatest moment in international hockey for 20 college players to defeat a team that trained year-round and won virtually every game and played before and after. It truly was in sporting sense a miracle. There's no other word for it. There's little chance the Americans would beat the mighty Soviets, and a lucky miracle for them to do so. The Soviet team did not play badly or fail due to some bizarre set of circumstances. The Americans just played the apex of their abilities. The same holds true outside of sporting context, and Edmund Gettier is famous for one thing. Writing is just by true believed knowledge, a 3-page paper that's revolutionized epistemology, and according to good scholars, has been cited nearly 3,800 times. Even that number underestimates its influence, since the Gettier problem was such a household phrase among philosophers. Not citing the original papers is pointless as a Christian minister, footnoting an offhand reference to the Gospels. Actually, Gettier is famous for a second thing as well, never publishing anything else in his long career. Despite the incredibly improbability of publishing a field-defining argument in one sole paper, it's also a result of Gideon's masterful insight. He knocked a hole-in-one on his first outing and never picked up the club again. A lucky shot that's nonetheless the result of mastering controls. Similar examples would include Hugh Everett III, whose sole scientific publication introduced the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, or John Candy Toole, who committed suicide when he could not find a publisher for his first book, Confederacy of Dunces, which won the Pulitzer Prize after his death. Moral luck high performance. The examples given so far in A through B are cases of non-moral luck that don't fit the pattern of luck specified by the control theory. Here's a case of moral luck along the same lines. A sniper who hits a distant moving target and one off high performance cases of outcome luck, such as shot is very chancy. There's low probability of success, but in that instance, the shooter had a very high degree of control. The lucky sniper lacks reliable control, but like the golfer who hits a hole in one, in that rare instance possessed very high control over his actions. For example, Chris Kyle is credited with more kills than any other militarist ever in U.S. history. In every possible measure, Kyle was a world-class professional marksman with greater control over his weapons and shooting as anyone alive. An American sniper, Kyle's autobiography detailing his military career in the Middle East. He describes the longest successful shot near Sadr City outside Baghdad. Kyle spotted an enemy insurgent aiming a rocket launcher at an army convoy. Kyle took aim with a Macmillan TAC 388 sniper rifle. Google what the heck this is. Definitely a gun. Fitted with a 25 power scope at 2,100 yards of exchange, it would take a lot of luck to hit him. Whenever I watch through my scope as the shot hit the Iraqi, you tumbled over the wall of the ground. Wow, I'm at 2,100 yards. The shot amazed me. Now is a straight up luck shot. No way one shot should have gotten him. If the Iraq War was an immoral war of aggression, then Kyle Lucky shot increased the blameworthiness for participating in such an action. It is moral bad luck. If the Iraq War was a just war of liberation from a oppressive and violent regime, then is killing him in search increased Kyle's praiseworthiness and his moral good luck. In Kyle's own view, everyone who shot was evil. Like because in every shot, they all deserve to die. Kyle's record of 160 confirmed kills also provides a moral like case of a hot streak. It's a lucky and probable achievement of a long record. to the success, the skill, time, and controlled effort. One might argue there were many exogenous factors that led to both Kyle's streak and his 2100 shot in Sutter City. The weather has helped the movements and performances of both his comrades and the enemy, civilian interference or lack of it, the orders of his superior officers, many other factors were outside his control. Had any of the circumstances conspired differently, he would have failed. His shooting is lucky, all right, and this luck is explained by features of the world outside his control. Therefore, Kyle doesn't count. As a counterexample to the analysis of moral luck, he is still low control, high chanciness after all. Here's the problem with trying to show that Kyle's shooting was outside of his control. He's in control of his streak and his shots to the extent that his abilities and efforts reduce the chanciness. In this sense, he had great control, yet his success was still extremely chancy, which is why it was characterized as high control, high chanciness. Quick argument, the previous paragraph concludes that Kyle is nonetheless a case of low control. Unfortunately, such a result makes everything out of our control, in a meaningful way, and thus everything is about. Even experts exercising their skills, but some of their abilities still succeed only by luck, then Menander is right. Stop reasoning for human reasoning. That's nothing to do here. All that we say or do is to we only write our signatures below. The move of the preceding paragraph essentially insists that control views Zimmerman's complete control, only an omnipotent being, one who is in maximal command of all the causal factors, which really counts as being in control, and a possibly higher bar that threatens all moral responsibility. As free will theorists know, a world where no one is really in control of their actions or their outcomes might as well be a world where no one is responsible for any of their actions. Saving moral luck from the high control, high chanciness examples like Chris Kyle comes at the expense of moral responsibility. Cases A through C are ones of increasingly improbably mildly fragile events that also involve increasing control, something prohibited by control theory of luck. There are also cases of both moral luck and accident plague that are increasingly probable mildly robust events that exhibit decreasing control. These also follow inside the curve of allowable instances of luck, as illustrated in Figure 2. The first of these is lucky necessity. While I have explored the possibility of lucky necessity more fully, here's one such example. If the gravitational constant G were a bit weaker than the universe would have rapidly expanded into the thermodynamically entropic thin soup of lifeless fundamental particles. If it were a bit stronger, everything would have clumped up into giant black holes and there would be no life. We hit the sweet spot. We're lucky that the gravitational constant made life possible. What's the probability that the gravitational constant made life possible? Given the prior that there's life under G, who could dispute these simply without self-contradiction? Probability that G made life possible is 1. Furthermore, a usual understanding of physical necessity is strict entailment from the laws of nature. Clearly, the laws strictly entail themselves. Therefore, it's physically necessary that the gravitational constant isn't stronger or weaker than what it is. While there are different constants in other possible worlds with different laws of nature are quite distant from this one. In other words, there's zero chances that the gravitational constant is what it is, nor do we have any kind of control over the physical constants of the universe. Nonetheless, this is still a powerful intuition that we lucked out somehow, a judgment that doesn't fit on the curve of luck. While fortunate physical constants are not examples of instances of moral luck, here's an example of lucky necessity that's a traditional familiar example of moral luck. Constitution of lack of birth parents. It's often claimed that we are lucky to be born into successful, loving, prosperous families that we are, or unlucky to be born into dysfunctional, impoverished ones, or that it's good luck to be born with right racial or ethnic characteristics in a racist society, bad luck to be born with genetic diseases. Financier Warren Buffett, for instance, is claimed to be a winner in Wells's natural lottery, which Buffett calls the variant lottery. Buffett asserts that he could not have been born intelligent, that he could have been born intelligent or not intelligent, born healthy or disabled, born black or white, and that it's pure luck that he was born with the talents that he has. As Nagel argues, constitutive luck has to do with the kind of person you are, your inclinations, capacities, and temperament. Buffett's life turned out to be wonderful, which turned out as wonderfully as it did because of a big helping of constitutive moral luck. The problem is, contrary to Plato's myth of Aaron, Republic 10, we do not draw lottery tickets in the antechamber of souls prior to birth. It's a well-known Kripken point that we have our parents essentially. We have no control over genetic composition or who our parents are, nor do we have any control over innate constitution. At the same time, there's zero chanciness concerning them as well. Children born into other families with other parents and other biological makeups are not me. There's no chance that Buffett could have been born a black woman in Bangladesh or born 1,000 years ago, despite what he claims. Our intrinsic biological natures are beyond our control and may be a matter of luck, but they are not due to chance. Let us familiarly observe that lucky events are out of our control, but since he fails to spot the control, chanciness are inversely related, he incorrectly thinks that the fact poses no real problem for constitutive luck. What's this? In fact, it poses a deep and serious problem. I got an email. Not interested. I think I've seen this Ken Levy paper. Let's not do responsibility skepticism before that just showed up in my email, but Oh, yeah, I've seen it. Jean Cassez has a paper on old age as a stage of life that used. Looks kind of interesting. The Journal of Applied Philosophy. Read it later. Circumstantial luck at birth. Another common claim is that it's a matter of more luck to be born to a peaceful first world country, first world nation instead of a war-torn third world country, or born at a point in history instead of another. Our environment powerfully determines our language, religion, political leanings, career path, and ultimately the kind of people we become. Nagel notes that circumstances into which we're born or raised will be under control, even though these factors affect our blameworthiness or praiseworthiness. However, closer examination shows that many instances of circumstantial luck do not fit on the required curve of moral luck. Consider the case of Jack and Oscar Yuffe, whatever. 1929, 19-year-old Jew named Josef Yuffe left his hometown of Romania for the Caribbean, looking to escape those widespread anti-Semitism and the strict religious expectations of his Orthodox father. The best account of the twins is in Siegel. The historical details in the present discussion are derived from that. On the way, he met a young German Catholic woman named Liza, who fell for his good looks. They lived together for 4 years in the British Crown colony of Trinidad, had 3 children, including the identical boys Oscar and Jack, born in January 1933. 6 months after their birth, Liza, sick of Joseph's womanizing and Joseph's womanizing excessive love of Rome, decided she had enough. They separated, and Liza returned to Germany when their parents split up the boys. Oscar went to Germany with his mother just in time for the end of the Third Reich, which was epically poor timing for a boy with a Jewish father. It's immediately clear that any trace of Jewish ancestry had to be forgotten, and Oscar was advised never to say Jew again. Oscar's grandmother, trying to stay ahead of the curve, subsequently changed his last name and had him baptized Christian. Oscar became an enthusiastic member of the Hitler Youth, convinced by the message of the Führer and inspired by German nationalism. Although he was still a boy when the war ended, it's not hard to picture Oscar's life trajectory if the war had gone on longer or the Axis powers had won. Jack stayed behind in Trinidad with his father, became a British citizen, and was raised Jewish. Just as Oscar disfed his Jewish side, Jack did what he could to lessen the stigma of a German mother. He became a British patriot, joined the Sea Scouts, the first step towards entering the British Navy, even earned an award from King George VI as a teenager. By the time the war ended, Jack had fully embraced his Jewish heritage. He moved to Israel, enlisted in the Israeli Navy, and married a woman he met at the Kibbutz Ma'ale HaKrimnisha. Proud of his faith, Jack took a worthy star David around his neck. It's hard to imagine twin brothers taking more divergent paths in life. When the twins reunited in the 1950s, their meetings were initially tense, and unsurprisingly, they viewed each other with wary curiosity. While Oscar and Jack did eventually develop an ongoing relationship with each other, they were acutely aware of the dramatic role circumstantial luck had played in their lives. Oscar once insightfully acknowledged to Jack that if we had been switched, I would have been the Jew and you would have been the Nazi. Oscar and Jack had no control over their circumstances of their births, nor did they have any control over the conditions of their upbringings. Their lack of control did mean that it's improbable that they were born at a time of great anti-Semitism. It did not mean that it was improbable that they were born at a time of great anti-Semitism or mildly fragile that they were spoken by their parents. The specific circumstances of their birth and childhood were not chancy. It is extraordinarily likely that a boy raised under the immense pressure of the Nazis would join the nationalist cause, just as it was for a Jewish boy growing up in the British colony during World War II to enjoy its heritage. To the extent that the characters in life past were governed by their circumstances, they were not as a matter of chance. All outcome luck under determinism. The familiar definition of determinism, going back to Van Magen, is that given the laws of nature and a set of initial circumstances, there's exactly one physically possible feature. If determinism is true of our world, then there's zero chanceness about the outcomes of our reactions. There's only one way the future is going to go, and there's no risk of future events other than the ones already locked into place. Likewise, under determinism, agents have zero control over the outcomes of their actions. The intentional behavior is neither increasing the probability of some particular event, particular result, nor is it decreasing the likelihood of a counterfactual outcome. Determinism ensures that the consequences of actions are already probability one, in a world in which alternative events occur are remote indeed. The problem that determinism poses for free will are have they traveled ground. Relevant here is that determinism is true, then any proposed instance of outcome or result of luck fails to be on the required moral luck curve. Yeah. Take Nagel's pair of drunk drivers. It wasn't chancy at all for the pedestrian to run in front of one of the drivers, but not the other. In fact, that result was the only one physically possible. There is, of course, much written on the relationship between determinism and moral responsibility, but the additional wrinkle here is that since determinism implies there's no luck at all involved with outcomes, it also means there's no moral luck. Determinism, if true, prevents factors beyond agents' control from positively affecting the degree of praise or blame she deserves. Determinism is bad news for responsibility, but possibly worse news for moral accessibility. Nagel aptly notes that genuine agency and hence all legitimate moral judgment seem to shrink to an extensionless point. The usual philosopher's response to counterexamples is to add new clauses to their definition to make the analysis even more fine-grained and Byzantine. That familiar approach is doomed to failure here. Moral luck essentially involves a lack of control. The demand is captured in fact of figure 1, subject to counter examples in figure 2, adding more conditions to what counts as moral luck does not escape these cases. All increasing restrictions does is kick more punitive cases of moral luck off the curve. It does not bring in examples that never fit on the curve, that didn't exist, that there to start with. Moral luck is already too narrowly conceived, complicating the concept with more clauses and strictures only makes it narrower, not broader. Moral luck needs to be more inclusive, but there's no way of doing so as long as it's tied to a lack of control. That requirement, a demand that everyone who writes on moral luck, a demand of everyone who writes on moral luck, is the worm at the heart of the problems described above. That might be the way to put this in Hypernomicon. There was a worm. The other temptingly obvious move is to abandon the control theory of luck and try to make moral luck run on probability theory or model theory of luck, figments of luck in epistemology. That strategy also will not work. A lack of control is uniformly taken to entail a high degree of chanciness. The more relaxed control of an event, the more improbable it is that the event will occur, or more morally fragile that event's occurrence becomes. The co-sensible way to think at this point is that the control theory of luck entails a probability view of the moral modal view of luck. As we've seen, there are several classes of examples of moral luck that are neither improbable nor morally fragile. That is, neither the probability view nor the modal theory is compatible with moral luck. Practically, everyone who writes on luck is some version of control probability modal theory, even if they hybridize them or add on clauses, but none of the base theories is ultimately compatible with moral luck. Moral luck rests on the foundation of an age of lack of control. Most moral luck literature takes the notion of control and analyzed in intuitive level. When control is more closely examined, the received view is that the control is inversely proportional to chanciness, increase one, decrease the other. The upshot is that all cases of moral luck are to be located somewhere on the curve plot in figure 1 that is a sine qua non. For case of moral luck is that they're high chanciness low control. What's surprising is how many instances of lack of moral luck in particular fail to follow the prescribed pattern and are either high chanciness low control or low chanciness low control. The wide variety of counterexamples along with different dimensions shows that either there's no such thing as moral luck or everyone's deeply mistaken about its nature and radical rethink is needed. I'm just going to put there's no such thing as moral luck. Agreed. Good paper. I think I've read this. Yeah, and I don't even need this. Delete. This is interesting, but I think I don't really need it, but I want to look up this person. She has a dog. Okay. I don't think I need this. I do need this. Lot of figures. Okay, my voice is getting ragged, so I think I will stop streaming now. Thank you everybody who joined me, which possibly like one person, if any. And